Welcome to the Balance Sheet. I'm your host and fellow student, Conrad Chua, Natallia Iakymenko. Natallia is an executive MBA alum here at Cambridge Judge Business School, and she's worked in many finance roles in e-commerce, web platform companies. During her executive MBA, she did a research paper on this, using her experience observing and working with Ukrainian businesses during this ongoing war. So she'll talk a bit about that, but first of all, Natallia, do you want to tell our listeners a bit about your career?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for inviting me here, and it's a great pleasure actually to share my insights about my individual project. About my career, I'm a finance executive with more than 20 years experience. As you rightly mentioned, I mainly been involved in such an industries as e-commerce. All of years I worked with TV channels and media industry, and recent couple of years I spent in technology company in sustainability industry, and my research paper has nothing to do with my main field, but actually it's my personal story and motivation behind it, why I did it.
And to our listeners, if you're watching this live, you can ask Natallia any questions through the chat, through the Q&A box. So Natallia, obviously Ukraine is still fighting this, fighting the invasion from Russia. Cast your mind back to that February, and even before that. Were there any sort of signals that businesses in Ukraine were picking up about what was to come?
I know business they would little bit in 2014 actually, but just it evolved to the full-scale invasion only in 2022. And obviously it was the signals, but I guess business just adapted enough, and it was very much localized on the east. Crimea was taken over, and some of the attacks being localized on the east, and it was sort of ceasefire like later on. So it wasn't perceived as a war, ongoing conflict. My personal reflection when I was in Ukraine in 2022, I worked for the biggest actually e-commerce platform in the country and in Central Asia, OLX, and I started analyzing in 2021. It was in like April, May 2021. The first insights that Russian troops actually were placed alongside the eastern border. And I actually questioned myself, like, so what's happening? Why you have to place so many people? And what is the main goals? Because I have very much financial mindset. And if you calculate the cost, so it has to be a very important goal behind it, right, for such an effort. And in like a half year later, we as a business team of the company started actually tracking more closely what's happening like Rhetorics News and developing business continuity plan in the case something will happen. And the reason of it, obviously, it's expectation from the various stakeholders, and the company being part of the listed company at Euronext Stock Exchange. So we couldn't ignore even the minor signals.
So you did you have any kind of military experience before this?
No. I just I had very good experience working in one of the biggest media TV channel for almost 6 years, and I probably was lucky or unlucky to join all of my new companies when the crisis just about to begin, and when I just joined TV channel, it was 2008, big financial crisis, and a lot of people been redundant. So despite of my finance role, I had to pick up a lot of operational stuff. And I took care about, like, as account manager, about all of the subscription for TV channel, help them with the procurement of equipment for television. And I've got some experience of understanding the production. I was sitting actually in the newsroom for a couple of years of my time being in a finance role, and got me some different probably perceptions the way how I read the news. And when I left actually the industry itself, and this threat of war insights of it just started. So I just started analyzing, collecting information, presenting it to our corporate headquarters, saying that there is a dynamic and actually rhetoric. So if you look at this dynamics of rhetoric, it's changing when the threat is actually materialized. So we offer them business continuity plan. In a case something happens, so we could be ready at least. It's nothing wrong in that. We've got the budget for it, a couple of $100,000. And we sort of been lucky because we didn't have a tangible asset in the country. So we had most of our tangible assets was furniture, big office, and the people. Actually, that's the most valuable assets we had for the company. So from the perspective of business continuity planning, we rent out on the west of the country a couple of buildings. It's actually so we could place them there with their families. We equipped actually those buildings with a good quality internet, which allowed so many people to work. We offer opportunities also to bring their closest member of the families in a case they want, so they could cover their own expenses. And company just covered employees' expenses and also provided all-inclusive package with dining at that place. And also we conducted a series of workshops with the professional militaries. I guess it was like 2 weeks before the war started.
Oh, okay. And so what did these workshops cover?
It was more about, in a case invasion will happen. So what essentially, like how it will be done from military perspective, because we didn't experience it in the decades at that territory. So, and they told us as a scenario which was completely as I said. And
so they actually managed to predict or forecast what was going to happen.
Yes, because for them it was quite obvious, because they were like ex-militaries actually running their like a low security company. So they worked in the civil area, but they had really good military experience. And after they called to army as well and supported actually defense of Ukraine. But they also told us in a case how we have to prepare, like your documents, your most essential basic stuff has to be packed in like a small luggage bag or even the small backpack, because you won't be able to take a lot of stuff. All of your documents always packed with you. And still, by the way, so many people and myself, I follow this this rule. So you should always have a cash. You should always have your documents with you, disregards where you go. Some dry snacks in a case you have to stay without food for a couple of days' time. Also, they mentioned that the attacks will be just targeted the biggest cities and most of the capitals. So if you go outside, 50 kilometers outside of the main city, so at least from Kyiv you will be like more secured to some extent. But the main problem actually it was psychological, because that's something I expect to hear. It's quite scary actually.
Yeah, so it's really interesting that you didn't have prior sort of military experience. But based on what you could see from the media and using your own sort of finance experience to think, well, how much is this costing Russia to mobilize so much? Then the stakes are quite high. How did you get people in the company to take this seriously? Because as you say, a lot of people are not psychologically prepared, and many people might have said, well, I don't want to, I prefer not to think about it. So how did you get people to feel that urgency?
Okay. Yes, actually, I wasn't the most credible source of information. It's true. And especially I'm female as well. So there is certain bias that probably I'm a little bit more conscious and more exaggerate the danger than it is. I had a conversation with my CEO at the time, and it was like multiple iteration of the conversation, I have to say, before we managed actually to bring it to the headquarters, saying actually in offering that we can offer some particular business continuity plan, and we actually started promoting to take steps and actions before any danger may start. And it was like in media, it was various scenarios. So it's not a finance, but in finance you think in scenarios, and in regular life, if you can take a risk, so you also think with the scenarios. So that's actually the basic of business continuity plan. And these scenarios, if you allow in these scenarios to happen, like even to the extreme conditions, if you let your mind just think about the extremes. So that's what actually made it really helpful for the business. And we thought about the extremes. In Ukraine, didn't.
Right. Okay. So you managed to convince the CEO that this is serious and that you should
grant me the support actually
for business continuity. So you said you got a few $100,000, and there were workshops. You found some places for people to go to. How did you go about planning what you wanted to do with that couple of $100,000 when it must have seemed like there's so much so much unknowns that were coming in?
I would say we've been creative, or tried to be creative, and as I said, value of that company actually it's focus on the people and on human access, and that's why actually they granted those money to secure people, because we didn't have any tangible assets inside of the country, apart of the laptops and some probably investment in the office.
This is the e-commerce company.
Yeah, it's an e-commerce company. Yeah. So all of the platforms we've been hosted in Amazon, so outside of the country. So we didn't have our servers inside of the country. So essentially all this information was supported outside. We had on the ground only customer support, sales, marketing team, and admin team who supported operations. And from Kyiv, we also cover Central Asia, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, some of the functions. So essentially, company just supported us to secure people, and what we did, we just helped them to maintain their liquidity. Apart of the workshops, we said like we don't know how situation evolve, and we know whether we will be able to pay your salary or what happened, like whether we will be able to withdraw money. So you at least you should have some means crisis. And we just pay them a couple of months' salary in advance.
Oh, okay.
Saying like it's your own responsibility how you're gonna just manage your finances. But we, as a company, just perform our commitment and responsibility, and can do it technically because we didn't know what's gonna happen with the servers. Like analyzing technical infrastructure of banks, for example, all of the servers were inside of the country because it was a legislative requirement at that time. And after, obviously, it changed, and it took like a couple of months from banks actually to move their servers out of the country and all of the database out of the country. So from national security perspective, it wasn't the the decision which you take before the war. So that's why we proactively decided to manage that. We stop all of our market, like we didn't stop, but just we stop investment and commitment, all of our marketing campaigns and everywhere where we need like invest some money. So we pay only like regular routine bills to maintain the operations. That's it. We didn't invest at all. At least we stop until situation becomes clear. And we also made a prepayment for a couple of months to those accommodation on the west part of the country, just in case we won't be able to make and to proceed any payments. So at least money actually to support us there. It was just some basics. Obviously, we wanted to do more, but when we talked to our military consultants, they told us some like basics which we can do and something which we can't do. For example, it's when the war started, it's very chaotic environment, so you cannot just pass and ship them to another part just because you cannot technically do that.
So this is not safe on the roads.
It's not just not safe because when the Russia just attacked and we couldn't resist on the beginning for a couple of weeks time until our defense and army with help of civilians mobilized a little bit and pushed them back at the northern part. So they just came into Kiev region and every road were blocked, so people even couldn't actually escape from that place. So you cannot do certain things in the organized way. That's the main takeaways, and that's why we had to involve those consultants a little bit to give us a guidance, like how to do and what to do, and actually what's feasible, what's not.
So it sounds like the company was very forward-thinking, right, and trying to make sure that employees, people were looked after. Was there any idea about, as an objective, of keeping the business running even during wartime?
Honestly, I guess, like before the war, you have some objectives, right? That's why you try to secure, invest, predict. But when essentially the crisis has different stages, let's put it this way. So we had to go through the extreme crisis, which is the first phase of the war. And most of the analytics say that the first phase was for a couple of months' time until the Kiev actually was defended properly. And after the operations being more resumed in a proper way. And adaptation, like some adaptation, which takes as the first phase a couple of weeks time. And for most of the businesses, when the trade was resumed, like a sort of business started go back to some operations, commercial operations, it took a couple of months, up till 3 months time. And our platform actually trends. And in April, when the operations been resumed, so we couldn't get revenues, but at least the transactions been resumed, so platform was used. And what we did proactively, we understood that we cannot get the revenues because people didn't have a means to pay. And we relaunched dynamic discounts in those regions which were the most affected, giving like 80% discounts, 90% discounts, or even for free services on the platform, just to support the civilians. But what is actually great about the platform and in e-commerce itself, because it's very much reactive. In the case there is any need in the market, especially during the crisis. So e-commerce platform is the first one which actually satisfy or start satisfying the demand for it with a small supply.
Right, okay.
That's what we saw, especially considering that around 8 million people were displaced during the first phase of the war. So those people actually had to satisfy somehow their needs. They cannot buy everything from scratch. They just run away with this one small backpack. So our KPIs also were very much dynamic and depended on the phase which actually entire country experienced.
Obviously, the situation changes so quickly during this sort of period, not just militarily, but also for the company, where some people might have to be called up, right? And then, as you say, there's a lot of migration, internal movement, displacement. How does a business like your company or others in Ukraine kind of adaptability, right? Or that kind of dexterity, agility?
It's probably difficult to say how, because it was a gradual process. And during the first shock war happened, and I have to admit that we introduced our business continuity plan before the war. And we introduced opportunities for people to relocate to safer western part, like 10 days before the war, roughly. And after we counted, so only 15% of people actually took this opportunity before the war. And it was kind of some predictions that were going to happen, if it's going to happen. So it will start right after the Olympics. So the dates were kind of more clear. And people just didn't want to interrupt their normal way of life, because it's disruption for entire family. And that's why even you give opportunity to secure, so not majority still didn't believe that this scale could happen. Obviously, majority will have to go through the extreme experience, especially in Kiev, and most of our team lived and worked from Kiev. And I guess this agility actually developed gradually because people just made their choice to stay inside of the country. Even those who fled outside of the country, most of them came back at certain points.
So you came to do the executive MBA, and then you did your research paper on entrepreneurships in crises, obviously with a big focus on Ukrainian businesses. What did you learn as a result of your research?
I was inspired actually to dig into this topic, because when the time came to define my topic for individual project, I read one nice quote said by Winston Churchill: "Never let a good crisis to go waste." And I thought about what we know about the war. We know only about damages, right? Explosion, immigration, which also creates a huge impact on most of the European country and the UK. And I thought, but there are so many inventions which happened during the war, and no one knows about that. What actually really happening, and civilians during those.
What are some of the very prominent inventions or innovations during the war?
First of all, at least what stand out for me personally, because it was a lot of shifts. First of all, the change of focus. Business had a focus on the customer satisfaction, and that's gradually shift to the human asset focus, because human asset became the most scarce resource at the market. At the beginning of the war, it was employer market, obviously, because of the frustration, lack of clarity, what's happening, and it was quite a lot of redundancies, damages of the business, and people lost the job. But second year and the third year, the focus shifted completely, and it became employer employer economy again, employee economy again, yes, other way around, just because almost 8 million people been relocated internally, and another 6 million left country, roughly 6 million just, and 70% of them are fully qualified employees. So now we experience like 25% of qualified employees. It's just loss for the market. And also it's predicted that by 2030, we will have 7% decrease in the efficiency at the market. So there is no way. You have to do something about that. And what's the positive shift happened? First of all, diversity in the teams and the businesses, because females started being involved in more like a male dominant positions and industries. For obvious reasons, we have high loss of our male population because of the war, and also they are mobilized. Automation processes, especially at warehouses, for example, where female cannot do the work. So like delivery providers, for example, they had to automate their warehouse lifting and packaging processes for female to be able to handle them. Also opportunities for young people. If you just come to Kiev, there are so many young people just serve especially in service industries. It's opened up opportunities for them to find a job, which wasn't accessible so much for them before they graduate from the university. Again, because of the lack of skilled labor. A lot of programs in the big companies, which actually aim to train those young people and employees through the internship programs to educate them to be fully qualified professionals for particular companies, which again, it was call of the time rather than just prepared long-term plan before. What's another interesting shift, a part of human focus, it was digitalization in the social sector. We are quite well known for our bureaucracy. Heavy paper economy. Quite a prominent app, Dia, which was recognized by Time as one of the best last year. So this application actually digitalized experience, for example, to restore lost documents, or just report about the damaged houses, or gather financial aid for damaged properties.
So this app is set up by the Ukrainian government?
Yeah.
Oh,
and actually it was set up in 2019, roughly. But actually, it got its prominent development when the war started. So they invest a lot of in digitalization of the services and social services. And now you can even just get married online and divorce as well.
Okay.
Yes, which is, I guess, the first country being reported for the online official marriage. Yes, and that's everything you can go and perform and do through one application, the same application.
So do you feel that there are lessons that businesses, not just time economy, can learn from how businesses in Ukraine have adapted?
I believe the first lesson, which will be useful actually to remember, it's about still business continuity planning, because most of the small and medium businesses tend to ignore it to some extent. And even after the war, they say, but there is nothing we could predict at the time, which I deeply disagree. Because if you try to produce the scenarios and get your business and team prepared to it, so it's more chances that you will respond with less damages to the business itself. Maybe you can't predict it, yes, but you can respond better. And importance of business continuity planning and certain steps which can be done, like take care about the cash liquidity. It's the first. Cash is a king, and liquidity actually it's a driver of your response in the crisis time. Just to manage the diversification, which was some of the specific of Ukrainian economy. A market was sufficient enough on most of the businesses without the need to go abroad and meet of the different standards, criteria, customer requirements. And when the war started, most of the businesses think about the diversification and try to reach markets abroad that may help to navigate the crisis when it comes. And automation and digitalization, something which is was automated, like COVID taught us quite a lot, how to work online, how to be efficient, how to communicate, so you don't need to have a person controlled in the office. That's actually became very big value for us when the war started, because we started hiring people and managing them from everywhere in the world, not just remotely on Ukrainian territory, but many people, Canada, US, Europe, UK. So with the time difference, people just learn how to manage their routine internationally with different time zones. Certain experience, but when you lock down in your own country within the same time zone, understanding the same problems, that's a little bit different when managing people who've been spread to so many different countries. So, and the most important, I guess, takeaway, which most of the business owners and founders start thinking about, is the need for a leader to be a psychologist.
A psychologist?
Yes. To be a psychologist, or at least to gain the knowledge how to understand people, how to, it's not just a matter of HR function, because since humans are the most impacted by the crisis of war, and they're the most impacted not just because of physical danger, because they experience emotions like fatigue, irritation. That's the emotions which are being researched, they experience at the moment. So leaders should know how to navigate them and how to help them somehow to be efficient and to perform their jobs. And they talk about, at least in Ukrainian societies, there are a lot of discussion that to be a psychologist or understand the basics, which typically was understood by the HR function. Now it's essential for most of the leaders in different functions.
Anyone who's listening to this, watching this live, again, if you have any questions for the Q&A box. But Natallia, I'd like to this idea of leaders as like psychologists, obviously more than 2-3 years now, and that kind of toll.
Fourth year,
year. That kind of toll that it must take on people who have to live through each day. How do companies or leaders, have you seen any examples of leaders who have been quite effective in managing that kind of human dynamic?
I had to admit that companies I researched, they were so much different, and also it's very much depends on accessibility and availability of resources you have within your organization and business to reinvest to support people. But what most of the businesses did, at least, or tried, people at the first stage of the war, giving them resources. Even some businesses which didn't have enough cash liquidity, they try support people for a month, couple of weeks. If not, they gave them opportunity to work with their means and equipment, which company owned, for another employers or companies where they could gain essentially the job. So that flexibility, that was a great support, because normally Ukrainian market quite hierarchical and support top-down approach. So flexibility in our environment, or bottom-up approach in communication, top-down and bottom-up, this circulation, it wasn't the typical for the market at all. And what started happening is that leaders started talking more and conducting all hands meeting, regular catch-ups with the entire business, disregard of their management position and level in the hierarchy. And they started talking directly to all of the employees. That's actually the shift happened in the business culture. And even some businesses, they still keep going through this new communication style for them, and that's enable and open up opportunities to hear what people needs without imposing those needs which company can give. So they started more listening of the employees themselves.
Before we started the live stream, you told me that you just returned from Kiev.
Yeah.
Right. And,
a few days ago.
Yeah, and obviously life goes on, but people are always under the threat of, or living under the threat of an attack. How do you, can you tell us a bit about what life is like in Kiev, this sort of situation?
I've been there for months. I used to take a holidays in August because it's peaceful period for business, and to come to my home country to visit my greater family and my grandma who is staying there. It's interesting enough because everything functioned well, incredibly well. Trains are running their service on time. So we don't have issues with the delays, time of the night attack. So during the day, it's completely like a normal life. We have traffic jams, a lot of cars on the streets. Like everything works, but the issue when the night starts. So most of the attacks happening at night, and especially at times from 2 a.m. to 6 to 7 a.m. When your body needs the rest the most. And that's what creates actually the biggest fatigue and irritation from civilians, because they cannot get a rest. And this tiredness, it's just cumulative throughout the years. And what also probably differs that environment from this environment, Western environment, because people understand that something happening overnight, and you may not be in your best mood and best shape, but still you are trying to do the best actually to come to work and to join the meetings and to run the business as usual. And they give just a discount on that people can just take a little bit more rest during the day, or get back home a little bit earlier after a night attack. So some companies also embedded officially in their policy these adjustments to give people opportunity to take a little bit of time during the day to get rest, which is a little bit maybe strange for this environment. But it's the least complaint. I never heard the complaints about it. It just became part of their life, not the best one. But you just wake up and go. And amazingly, people still have a hope that finally it will come to the end at a certain point.
Let me ask, how do you personally cope?
Not very well. I have to admit, my resilience is not so high compared to people who are living there, who have been living there for years. like I just try to follow all of the notification, alarm notification, and try to protect myself hiding underground or in underground parking. I spent a couple of nights there. It was well, it wasn't the most comfortable night, but after obviously staying there for months, I understand actually how people get tired, and I can't imagine myself like without the sleep at night. Last year I tried to perform my 2 assignments for executive MBA program in August, and also at that time I had a holiday. I had to do it between blackouts because last year we had a quite intense blackouts in August. And I had only like 8 hours or like a couple of hours in between those blackouts to write my assignments and to be efficient after the sleepless night. So, and obviously it affects the quality. I didn't aim to be the best. I just aimed to pursue and go through it. So I guess it's a fact on your goals, which you want to achieve. You have to be more reasonable with your resources, try to balance how much you can give and invest and for what.
Well, Natallia, that's very sobering, but also very inspiring kind of recount of what's happening in Kiev, in Ukraine, and also how companies have adapted, right, to the kind of changes that they have. I think there's also, from what you mentioned, there's lessons that every company should take on board, whether that's in terms of business continuity planning.
At least start thinking about it.
Yeah. How to treat employees, or just to rethink how the workforce can be motivated, right, and looked after. I think most importantly is this idea of leaders as psychologists. Right? There's something that maybe I think in the West we have kind of forgotten very quickly after COVID, right?
Well, I guess we all forgot about the importance of human assets, right? Some of the biggest companies, they have some policy aiming to retain talent, support, and invest in talents. But if you just analyze the entire landscape of the business, most of the CME just utilize the resources without thinking how to reinvest in them. And my main just idea is that geopolitics is changing a lot at the moment. And as business operations is no longer the same as were before, and thinking about how to probably navigate, because the war is just extreme crisis. We went through many crises, financial crisis, COVID crisis, war crisis in Ukraine, geopolitical crisis. It's one of them which is coming, because most of the economies now try to be derailed to the military direction.
Yeah, and I think these are useful sort of lessons that we need to remember, right, and actually act on, because especially now with AI, there is a tendency for a lot of companies to think, I can invest in AI and maybe not invest so much in people. But as you said, it's actually the human assets that really, at the end of the day, become extremely important, along with the kind of business continuity planning, right? And always just thinking about those geopolitical risks. So thank you so much, Natallia, for sharing this fascinating, but also I can see it's obviously a painful experience that yourself and millions of people are going through, and I hope that peace.
Hopefully.
So thank you very much for joining us as well, and we'll have other episodes of The Balance Sheet in future weeks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.